So today I'm going to take some time and refinish my front door here. It gets exposed to the sun quite a bit in the morning, so it gets a lot of wear and just weathering down at the bottom here where it gets most of the sun. It's partially covered, but of course everybody kicks it with their toes when they're walking in, and we've got some scratches from the dog and the keys and everybody's hands, commonplace where they close the door. But you can see that for the most part, about halfway down this door, there's hardly any clear coat or polyurethane. It's just not there anymore. Some paint drips. So we're going to take this door off, strip it down, put a new coat of stain on there, and some spar urethane is what we're going to be doing this time to make it last a little bit longer. So stick around. I'll show you what I'm going to do. Thanks. All right, here's some of the tools you're going to need in order to get this done. We'll start over here on the left-hand side. You're going to want to have a block of wood with a shim to lodge underneath the door in order to take the door off. So we'll start with that. This hammer and nail, ironically, I see a lot of people on YouTube, they'll just unscrew the hinges from the door. But I find that when you do that and you put the hinge back on, sometimes it doesn't want to go on just exactly as it was before, and the door doesn't set right. So it's a lot easier actually if you take this hammer and this little nail and knock the pin out from between the hinges, and I'll show you that in a minute. You're going to want to use, of course, in this particular case, I'm going to use a sander. There's hardly any clear coat on that door, so I'm just going to sand the wood down to get it to the raw wood. Normally I would then use, if there was more of a clear coat on there, I would use a stripper, a furniture stripper. Don't need to in this case. And of course, a screwdriver to get the lock off and the handle off. Tape to protect the glass. A razor knife, just because you always need a razor knife. A scraper to get any little pieces off in the corner and clear off a couple things that might be left behind. The sandpaper that I'm going to be using with this, I'm going to start with an 80 grit to get the vast majority of whatever's left on there off. And then I'm going to taper it down. 120. You really should not skip the grits. It'll be a much smoother finish if you do not. 180. Got a 220 after that. And some people don't want to go farther than that, but I like to go to a 320 in between, and particularly in between the clear coats. So each, I'm going to put on three different coats of clear coat of the spar urethane. When you're finishing the door in itself, after it's all been stripped down to the bare wood, I'm going to use this Minwax Stain. Happens to be a colonial maple color. I found application, you could use a sponge, you can use all sorts of different things, a brush, whatnot. I find that using little cotton cloths are even better. You can apply a little pressure. It doesn't leave much lint, if any, at all. And you can apply a lot of pressure and really get that stain down into the wood. And then you really want to have tack cloths in between your coats of clear coat. Obviously you want to keep it really, really clean and smooth. So I like to apply the clear coat with a brush and then let it dry. We'll sand it down, use a tack cloth, and repeat the process. And then of course you got to have coffee. So these are the products that you're going to need in order to get this job accomplished. It would be handy as well to have a couple of sawhorses so you can lay your door down on it and have a clear open space. I'm going to do this outside. Hopefully the wind is going to cooperate, the weather's going to cooperate. And of course you want to make sure you're in the right temperature. You can't be too cold or too hot. You're going to have some challenges there. I may have to move this into the shade if the sun starts to pick up. But it is February here in Florida. We'll see what happens. Okay, as I mentioned before, you're going to want to take your hardware off. My deadbolt's got these two screws here. This handle, if you pop this little cover off, it just pops right out to the side. It'll reveal two more screws on the inside here. All these are Phillips head screws, so you can use this Phillips head screwdriver. And then you're going to want to remove these pieces here as well. This exterior door handle, it does have a screw down here on the bottom for me to remove as well. Outside of that, those screws and all this hardware should come right off. Okay, so I've gotten the deadbolt off here and took the deadbolt piece that locks to the frame off. This piece here, I want to make a correction on this handle. before you pop this off to reveal the screws that are behind here, you're going to want to, this one has a small Allen wrench, 3/32 to be exact, that fits right in here, and you need to turn that in order to release this handle. So you can't, because you can't get to the screws without removing that. So you want to turn this inward. You're going to tighten it. It's going to seem strange, but you're going to tighten it to move that locking pin in, and you can see when you remove it, there's that pin. So now it gives clearance for this to slide through here. So you want to 3/32 inch Allen wrench to turn that so you can get to this, and then you can see, sorry about that, when you do that, you'll have access to taking this off here. Just a little flathead screw. Now you can get to these. All right, that should work. All right, so let me show you the trick I was talking to you about, removing this pin from the hinge as opposed to removing the hinges altogether. So if you just take a little nail, most of these have, there's a little hole on the bottom underneath here. You take a little nail, you can set it right up underneath here. Just take your hammer and tap at it until that pin starts to come up like that. At this point you can take that pin right on out of there, and then your door comes off. Then you can take the piece of the hinge that's attached to the door and unscrew that one, as opposed to trying to unscrew the hinge from the door jamb itself. It's a lot easier this way. Also, when you put these pieces back on and you want to return the door, you can just lodge them right in here and it'll help set. Not only that, a recommendation, you want to wedge some sort of board or something in here to prevent the door from moving at all. But you do that for all three of those hinges and you're good to go to get the door off. Okay, really quick tip before I get too ahead of myself. I forgot to take these hinges off, but something you want to do when you take the hinges off, you want to tape them off and save it and mark them so you know which hinge goes back to which portion of the door. So I'll show you what I mean here. So as you take these off, in this hinge all four screws are in. There is one hinge that only has 3 screws. Oh, look at that, had a spacer in there. So you put these back in like this, peel yourself off some tape, and then you can tape these so you don't lose your screws anywhere. And then you can mark it. I've already marked those others down there. This would be number 3 for me. And then in here I can mark number 3 as well. So I know that this hinge belongs to that spot. Especially now that there's a spacer in here. That's really important, because if that spacer wasn't in there, or it fell off, or I forgot, there would be a problem putting the door back on. So there's an extra tip on making sure that you can keep these together. And then of course, if there was a screw missing, if you only had 3 screws, you may want to just, set them in the exact spot that they were, leaving the one out, and tape it off the same way. So I finished sanding it down, had a little help. My son came out and gave me some assistance. But you can see everything has been sanded. I haven't completely tack cloth this off, got all the dust off yet. But very smooth. Went through all the different grades of sandpaper. Was it 80, 120, 180, and then finished it off at 220. To make sure it's got a really smooth, very, very smooth finish on it. So it's looking really good. Just gonna go ahead and tack cloth this off, get all the dust off of it, and get it ready for some stain. So I'm gonna apply the stain. Like to apply it to an area that's not necessarily gonna be seen the most. That'll be over here maybe on the side here to determine if it's the right color that I want. Put a little bit here and darken it up. See what that would look like. And like I said, with this cloth, you can really get that stain down in there. Yeah, that's looking like the right color that I want. So I'll go ahead and stain the rest of everything. Get a uniform color all the way around. Yeah, that's about the right color. So I've got a coat of stain on here, actually 2 coats of stain so far. Looks pretty good. I went ahead and looked at the other side. It's an exact match of the color. So this will be it for the stain. I'm going to let this dry as the can recommends, and then I'll add on some polyurethane, some spar urethane. Show you how that goes in a minute. The spar urethane I chose to use is this Minwax Helmsman spar urethane. Really good stuff. This is a clear semi-gloss, and you want to make sure you stir this well before using it, stir during usage as well. It goes on great. I'm going to apply 3 coats of this to the door. Thought I'd share an interesting tip with you. When you need to do multiple coats on something like furniture or a door, and you don't want to keep getting new brushes because these brushes can dry out pretty quickly, something you can do, real simple, you could take a sandwich bag, make sure you dip some extra urethane on it, put it inside the sandwich bag nice and neatly, get all the air to escape out of there. And you take this sandwich bag and you put it in the freezer, and don't let any air get in there. You are good to go. It'll be ready to go the next time you need to use it. That'll keep for a couple of days. So quick tip, that way you can keep using your same brush, and when you're done with it, then you can throw it away or clean it if you feel like being one of those guys that want to clean it. So for those do-it-yourselfers, there's a quick tip in being able to save that brush for the continuation of your same project. So I've taken the tape off. We've got 4 coats of the marine spar, or the spar urethane rather, on the door. This is the outside, of course, one that I've been working on. Put the hinges back on. So again, 4 coats, sanded in between each one. Haven't put the hinges back on yet. I mean, haven't put the hardware back on yet, but the hinges are on. So far it looks fantastic. I'm going to put the hardware back on it and put it back up and let you see what it looks like as a completed completed door. So here's the finished product. The door's complete, hardware's on. I'll take a couple of before and after photos here for you and put them on the end of this video, but you can see much different than it was before. Much different. Looks like a brand new door. So for all you do-it-yourselfers out there, definitely get it done. You can do it. I'm no expert. Hope the video helped you. Feel free to leave a comment.